What's up, guys and girls? This is Midnight Strike 3625, back with another new album review. Yes, that's right, something new finally after a long period of waiting, as 2014 has been very disappointing in terms of new album and music and video game releases. So now I actually finally have something new, and it's something that I didn't know if I wanted to talk about, because when I looked this up on, like, say, Wikipedia, new album releases, I found this out and it was released 4 days ago. So I'm already a little bit late, and I only know a little bit about this band. They're a band that you probably haven't heard of either, so I don't know if I really wanted to cover this, but after the first listen, it was pretty much a guarantee that I had to talk about this. I had to share my feelings over the interwebs with everyone about this band, and they are the thrash metal band Prong. Yes, that's right, if you saw my Facebook post, I love this band, especially after listening to their 1990 album Beg to Differ. Love the production on that album. It is old school thrash metal at its finest. So they're a little bit in the underground circuit, as people probably haven't heard of them before. They're not exactly the most popular band out there, but Beg to Differ was kind of sort of a mainstream breakthrough for them, at least for a little while, before they disbanded 7 years later, and then came back a little while afterwards. So this is their second reformation, and they've kind of been off the grid since 2007. So now finally in 2014, we actually have a new release entitled Ruining Lives, which came out 4 days ago, like I said before, and I really wanted to talk about it, especially after listening to it over and over again. So basically, I like this album a lot. Its production is very good. It has a lot of different intricate guitar melodies as well, and some awesome solos, especially in songs such as The Barriers, Turnover, Chamber of Thought a little bit to an extent, as well as Self-Will Run Riot. So there's a lot of awesome songs on here. Great guitar work, especially, and great vocals by Tommy Victor. So I like this album a lot. I don't necessarily know if it beats Beg to Differ for me. It's very close. Maybe I like this album a little bit better, and if not, it's at least on the same level. Beg to Differ had a little bit better production for me, but then again, that's because I'm a sucker for old school metal. So I digress. So to get into the album itself, it has 12 tracks, and some of which are very repetitive. I will say that. The album kind of blends together, per se, a lot for certain songs, certain structures, certain guitar melodies, and choruses. They kind of blend together sometimes, and that's one of the album's downfalls. And that's kind of a shame, because a lot of what's found on this album is very good, obscure metal. So, for example, Limitations and Validations. It's got a great guitar hook, but then again, after the chorus, it kind of fades off into repetitiveness and just kind of repeats the same thing over and over again. So I feel like a lot of what's on some of these songs, like that and Remove, Separate, Self, just get bogged down by the same thing, repetitiveness. So other than that, though, I really don't have anything on this album to complain about. So to get into it, there are 12 tracks, like I said, and it begins with Turnover, which has a very awesome drum beat and drum pattern, as well as production is pretty spot on. Guitars are great, drum work, and I really like the lyrics, especially in the chorus with the singing. Tommy Victor definitely has some really great points with the vocals on this album. Probably one of the higher points in his career for vocals. So the next song is The Barriers, and this one has a pretty kick-ass solo in it, especially towards the 3/4 mark. So really like the guitar structure, and the song is just really catchy and pleasing to the ear. The next one, Windows Shut. This is where the album just kind of starts to drag on for me a little bit. Like I said, Windows Shut and then Remove, Separate, Self with its repetitive nature. But Windows Shut in particular, I do like this song. I try to like this song, at least. I like the beginning of it, especially the intro. I really like the sound of the guitars and just the crunch and just kind of the thrashy nature of it. But after that, it just kind of goes off into this kind of atmospheric, kind of ambient production that just kind of hits you out of nowhere, and you're just wondering, how did we get from thrashy to this? It doesn't go very well together, and it's very distracting, I suppose would be the right word to put it, or the right way to put it, right word for it. So I don't know. Other than that, I mean, I do like the sound of the guitars, but it just wasn't really my favorite song. Remove, Separate, Self, like I said, it's a very interesting song, but it's very repetitive. I like the sound of the vocals as well as just kind of the sound of the guitars and the way the drums fuse with the guitars. I don't know, but it's just kind of repetitive. That's the only thing I can really say about it, is it's repetitive. Other than that, I mean, I would listen to it again, but it's just too repetitive. The next song is Ruining Lives, which is the title track, and from the instant I heard this song, I was hooked, and especially in the intro. This is one of the things that they do best on this album, is probably the intros and the sound of the guitars. They also hit the nail on the head pretty hard with the overall production, but then again, I digress. Back to the topic at hand, Ruining Lives, the song, the title track. This is one of my favorite songs on the entire album, and I could definitely tell that it was going to be such when I first heard it, especially leading into the intro riff, where it just builds intensity and keeps getting louder as it goes along, until getting into the actual song. It's one of those that keeps building intensity and gets darker and darker as it goes along. It's got a very, very catchy riff, and it's very aggressive as well. Not necessarily as aggressive as the next song, which I'll get into a bit later, but then again, it is a very good song in its own way. The next song is Absence of Light. Like I said, this is another aggressive song. It's more mid-tempo, though, and it's probably another one of my favorites. These three, the next three, Ruining Lives, Absence of Light, and The Book of Change, are definitely my top three. So, Absence of Light is one of those where it's more mid-tempo, and it relies more on a guitar-driven melody than anything else. It's a very good song, but I would say that maybe if it was a little bit more aggressive, it would rank higher on my list. So it is a very catchy song, though, at that, and it has a really kick-ass intro and really kick-ass sound to the guitars as well. The next song is The Book of Change, and this is definitely my favorite. It begins with the really frantic drum beat and awesome kick-ass solos as well. It really reminds me of Battery by Metallica, just kind of the verse structure as well. It's definitely the most aggressive and thrashy song on the entire album, and it's definitely my top pick. So, Self-Will Run Riot. This is one where it's a little bit repetitive, but the verses and the vocal structure actually drive this song into being not necessarily one of my favorites on the album, but definitely up there. So, it's a very good song as well. It's just a little bit repetitive, especially towards the midsection of it. The next song is Come to Realize. Kind of the same thing. It kind of blends together with the other songs, so it's not necessarily one of my least favorites, but it's also not one of my favorites. It's just kind of there, I suppose. It's not really filler either, come to think of it, Come to Realize. The next song, Chamber of Thought, is another good one. It's a very frantic, kind of more aggressive, fast-paced one. Everything is just where it needs to be, especially in the guitar melodies, as well as the structure of the overall song. It's a very well-crafted song at that, and the only problem that I see with it is it just kind of blends in with everything else. It's not necessarily repetitive, but it sounds just like Come to Realize a little bit in the verses, and especially in the chorus. That's really one of the only things that I can say. Limits and Validations, my least favorite song on the album, not necessarily because it's a bad song, but because it's so fucking repetitive. I mean, especially in the beginning, it has this really kick-ass intro, really kick-ass verse structure, all the way up to the chorus, and then boom, it's just repeating the same thing over and over again. I skipped through the song just to see if it would get any different, but it didn't. So, kind of the same thing with Retreat. I mean, Retreat is the next song. It's not necessarily a bad song, but it blends in with the rest of the album, and that's really the only thing that I can say. It's a good song, I really do like it, but it's just very structured to be just like every other song on the album, so it just kind of blends in with everything and goes along the lines of the same songs over and over again. But then again, this is a very good album. I would definitely recommend it to those who like metal. It's just not necessarily one of the best albums of the year, but it's pretty good. I mean, it was a good listen. I probably rate it 8.5, 9 out of 10 overall. I mean, I'll give it a 9 out of 10, especially because The Book of Change, Absence of Light, and the title track, Ruining Lives, as well as The Barriers and Turnover. Those were my top 5 picks, my top picks for the album. So, with that, thank you very much for watching. This is Midnight Strike 3625. I hope you enjoyed this review. Keep calm and rock on.